Hey guys, welcome again to the Dr. Cloud Show. I hope that you are having a good, still on lockdown day. I don't know what day. I should be counting these down, right? But how many days? But anyway, we're still here, and glad that you have joined us. This is the Dr. Cloud Show. It is a new show. If you're just tuning in for the first time, we decided to start this last week, and it is a live call-in show. So this is the hour that I can hear from you and you can talk to me and we will figure out life together. Let me give you the number to call. It's 844-940-2774. We had one comment yesterday that said, can you say that more slowly? Okay, let's do that. 844-940-2774. That's where you can call to get on the air. This is a place where we talk about all things life, but specifically, so I'm a shrink, and that's kind of the area that I hang out in, and I always think of that as a pie of life that has three big slices, and one of them is our clinical issues like depression and anxiety and panic and stress and addictions and all that fun stuff. And then there is the second piece, which is relationships, all kinds of relationships. And we get, I've loved the calls we've gotten here, but we've got everything from mothers-in-law. One of my favorite callers said her mother-in-law walks in, and the first thing she says is, "Oh, yeah, hard to recognize the place because I never get invited over here that much." I went, "Okay, well, that's a mother-in-law issue." So we, all husbands and wives and dating relationships and kids and extended family, all that stuff. And the third category is reaching your goals and dreams. We all have gifts and talents, and we want to one day end up with those not just being fantasies, but come on, we actually do something and get it to a place where it works. And so we talk about all of that. The number to call, 844-940-2774. So let me hear from you. I want to start out while the calls are coming in with giving you a little tidbit that I find really, really helpful in organizing life. And I know that's kind of a weird statement. It's not a calendar or a to-do list, but what I mean by that is an organizing principle of how to think about so many issues in life, but especially in your relationships, a lot of times in relationships that have to do with we're trying to drive something in a relationship where somebody's not performing like the way we need for them to perform, for example, or it might be work, or it might be even in our personal lives or parenting. But here's the organizing principle. I want you to think of life having two railroad tracks, okay? And the railroad tracks run parallel to each other, and they're always running through every single moment of our lives. And these railroad tracks also are the tracks that we personally have to be on ourselves. All right. Now, what are those tracks? Well, there's a lot of different words for them, a lot of different words. But no matter what the words, they're always talking about these two tracks. And let me give you two words that I think describe them well. How about this? Truth and love. Truth and love. Now, basically, what we're talking about here is that all of life, in every interaction, there's some sort of expectation. Okay. There's a principle, a way we ought to be doing it. And there's usually a communication of that principle, the way that we ought to be doing it. All right. That's the truth part. The love part is the kindness, the connectedness, the being for someone when we're doing it, supporting someone. I'm a person of faith, and I think of the scriptures speak about this in a lot of different words. Grace and truth is one of them. That grace and truth always have to come together. Truth and love always have to come together. Think of parenting. What does a good parent do? Provides love and limits. Okay. So everything we do, these two things are going to be there. Now, why is that an organizing principle? Well, here's what I mean by this, that in most situations, when you find something going screwy, all right, in most situations, if something is going screwy, then we generally got an imbalance or the absence of one of those. Now think about in a family, for example. If any of you if any of you have an extended family, let's say there's an addict in the family, or there's this irresponsible person in the family, or this one person that is kind of not getting things done in the family, right? What you're usually going to have is you're going to have in a problem scenario is you're going to have one parent or one family member is saying, well, they just need to get their act together. You can't live like that. You can't be. And they're going to be laying down the law and saying, and they're going to do it generally with some sort of anger, some sort of shame, some sort of guilt, but that expectation is all they talk about. And the emotional valence to that expectation is one of somehow anger, negative, shame, guilt, something. All right. But they're doing it without love. Then you go to the other end of the table, there might be two parents, there may be, who knows, two friends in a circle, whatever. You go on the other side of the table, and what are they saying? Well, yeah, but they've had such a hard life, and they're hurting so badly, and they can't do this themselves, and we want to help, and let's give them more money, and let's provide. So you see the love side, but the love without any expectations. Now, what do we call that? Love without expectations is enabling or codependency. Okay. Expectations without love is judgment. And that never helps either. What helps? An organizing principle where in every relationship, we have expectations. Something wrong with expectations. You can't get out of bed in the morning without an expectation. We have expectations. You know, I love it when C.S. Lewis I think he said that that some people say they're tolerant, and they have no expectations, and they don't, they're just sort of like really accepting, and they're tolerant of everybody. He says, well, walk up and punch them in the nose and see how tolerant they are, because at some point, everybody has expectations. There's a way that we know that, we shouldn't treat somebody this way, and everybody's got their own versions of parts of that, but some of them are universal. So expectations are good. It's how we enforce those expectations that tend to dictate whether or not we get good results. Do we do it in kindness? Do we join the person and help them meet those expectations? All of those kinds of things come into play here, especially in parenting and marriage, and leading people as a boss or as a coach. A boss or coach without expectations, that's another definition for a good party, right? That's not getting anything done. But having expectations and joining somebody in love, where you're helping them meet those expectations, that's where you want to work. Okay. So just think about that in life. Next scenario you go into, speak the truth. They need to hear the truth, but do it in love. And when you're loving, don't do it in a sloppy way without any kind of requirements to go with it. Those aren't mutually exclusive. In fact, they need to be going together. Okay, so let's go to the phones. We have Leslie calling us from Knoxville, Tennessee. You know what? I love all those mountains and hills, and Blackberry Farm. Oh gosh, what a great place.
It is beautiful.
It is beautiful. I got to tell you, it's
Hello, how
beautiful.
are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I need some organizing principles in a bad way. My question to you is I need good ones. Is there a way to escape from someone else's judgment against you when they have set up boundaries against you, but it's a relationship that you really need to keep, which is my daughter and my grandchildren? I'm going to try not to cry because it's bad.
Well, it would be.
She married about 5 years ago. I'll give you the brief scenario. And we watched them. They're Christian people. We are a Christian family. Have been we don't sit in the pews. We get busy her whole life. And we watched them over the years of their marriage walk down a very narrow doctrinal road. And I look back, I see over the years that I've been being grilled about my theology to the
Really?
point where she and her husband have now just, yes, over and over, we'd have conversations and bring it up. And after a while, I asked my daughter, I said, I don't know if he enjoys having just a theological discussion or if this is hurtful to him. And she said, yeah, he gets upset sometimes. So I quit, but I would still be asked questions. Anyway.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
He would start it, but it would be hurtful
Yes.
to him.
He would get
Is that
upset
right?
because I didn't agree with him. He would get upset because I didn't
But
necessarily
he would start it.
agree.
You're not walking into the house waving this theology flag. You're wanting to talk about apple pie or something, but he's bringing up the topic, right?
No. And
No.
And I quit doing it because she told me it does upset.
Wait a minute. You're bringing up the topic. I'm still unclear.
No, I do. I am not bringing up the topic.
No, but I'm asking
my daughter.
In the beginning, it sounded like they were grilling you, and then it sounded like no, you were the one. You were the one doing the grilling. Who's doing the grilling here?
Son-in-law.
Okay, all right. So he's bringing up the topic. He doesn't like your answers. He gets upset about your answers.
Correct. And so over time, all the different topics that we disagree on, he has come to the conclusion that my husband and I are false teachers of the gospel. And therefore, in Scripture, he's commanded to no longer associate with us. And he sent a letter with their demands that we step down from all our teaching and leadership roles in our church, which are a lot, in order to work on the relationship. So we are torn because we're 60. We don't do things because nobody else is going to do them anymore. We truly listen for the call of what we feel called to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've been in the Celebrate Recovery ministry for years.
So what is it? If I can get an idea of how kind of mainstream this is or not, what is an example of you being a false teacher?
A false teacher, he would say, he says, I don't believe in inerrancy, inspiration, and of Scripture. We had a conversation one time about the Chicago Statement of Faith.
Okay, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here, but what are you saying is he says that.
Yeah. I said I don't like that document because to me it makes people divisive. Because you can say, well, inspired means this, inspired means that. But he doesn't understand the nuance. I can still believe in inspiration, but not like that document. So therefore, I'm a false teacher because he says I don't believe it.
Okay, so
we've written down our. Go ahead.
I'm lost. Yeah, I can't tell sometimes if he's the more conservative one or you are. I don't know which one.
Oh no, he's way more conservative than I am. And
but you're the one.
We had a huge.
Okay, all right.
We're the false teachers.
Okay, we could unpack a lot of that, but So here's what I would suggest, and it's a little hard for me because sometimes I can't tell which one's got the most leeway here. But if you're saying he's more tightly kind of wound together than you, are you guys in the same church?
No. My kids are all spread all over the planet. They live in. We grew up Methodist. We've been Methodist. We've moved all over the world because my husband was in the Air Force. So we've been Assemblies of God. We've gone to Catholic church for a while.
No, I just have a simple question. You're not in the same church in the same town.
No, we do not live in the same town.
Oh, okay. Well, then, because what I was going to suggest is if you are, this really isn't his to decide. You go sit down, you all sit down with your pastor and say, I don't want to be a false teacher. And he says, I'm a false teacher. And, if you think I am, I need to know. But you can't do that. So what I would do, what you're really talking about here?
Yes.
What was that?
we actually invited his pastor to join us in these conversations because the last time we had a huge fight, I left crying. It was terrible. I said, this is not healthy for us to talk about this anymore without a third party present to hold
Yeah,
both
that's
of
good.
us accountable for our words. We asked his pastor to join in, and he sat there, but he didn't say a word. So it was really not helpful. So then we went, like I went to my pastor, we talked to them. So then my husband's brother is very theologically minded. We asked him to also engage with the son-in-law, and he did. And like some people that he would recognize as elders of the church have said, when you're our age, you will realize you're not handling this well, but you have a chance to do something now. And he is implacable in his judgment that we are false teachers. And unless we deny our call from God and step down, they will not contact us anymore. Through the loss of her grandmother, they came to the funeral. They did not speak a word to us. To this
That's
day,
awful.
they've not said, "I'm sorry that Grandma's gone." Like, not a word. I don't get it. Anyway,
Yeah,
it's
let's see.
wrong.
This is I mean, I wish we had a lot more time. I wish I could unpack a lot of the specifics. But
Yeah,
first of
it's
all,
wrong.
my heart goes out to you because this is ridiculous. I mean, for somebody to nitpick. In fact, there's so many scriptures about this that there are people that nitpick over words and cause divisiveness and arguments and all of this, and it's actually spoken about in the Bible that this is not helpful. Um, but
No.
I would try this. I would try this. The last thing you're going to do is you're going to convince a rigid person, if I'm understanding this right, because he has rigid black and white kind of stuff that, there are, and I'll just say this for all of our listeners. You hear all this stuff about, the Bible contradicts itself. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And people disagree. And how can you believe anything? Look, when you go to Orthodox faith, and they've looked at this pretty carefully. There's 90 something percent of the main tenets of beliefs that Orthodox Christians kind of sit around. They all believe the same thing. Now there is another kind of 10% of stuff that is sort of like tomato and tomato, right? But there's this 90% stuff, and that's kind of normal. And it's normal to disagree about the other 10 or so. But here's what I would try with him. I would say, look, what I've understood is this is really, really important to y'all. And I've come to the place where I really think, we're not going to believe the same way on everything. But here are the essentials, I think that we do agree on. And what I would like to do is I'd like to have the best relationship that we could have. And let's just not talk about any of this other stuff. And it may be that we can't talk about any of it, but we can obey some of it together. And one of the things that it says that we should obey, and we can do this together, is it says that we should love one another and we should be patient with one another, and we should have the best relationships possible. So here's my appeal to you. I would like for us to have the best family life we can and not talk about this stuff. And we don't have to talk about this stuff. And we love you and we want to be great grandparents and all that. And we're not gonna enter into these areas. If you're saying that in order to talk to us, we have to, you know, live our lives in a
That is
certain way
been
that
drawn, that we
so,
have
well,
to
what was that?
agree, or
Yeah,
else
I
that is the
you know,
line that has been drawn. We've already done what you just now
right.
said. Here's all the
Sorry.
ways we
And
agree.
okay, let me finish here. What I would
Yeah,
say to them
go
is
ahead. Yes.
is we would not want to control your life. Your pastors. Okay, the last one was not helpful. but let's get another one or
Mhm.
another mutually agreed upon one that they would deem we would both decide is orthodox, believable, whatever. And we're going to go to that third
Right.
party and let's agree on one who's the outside standard and let's go talk to them. And I think that that is the best that you can do. I've never really seen, I probably have somewhere, I've never really seen somebody who is very, very rigid give up their rigidity in a logical argument. What I've seen is as they get life experience and they find that life doesn't fit into their little boxes and they become more relational and they process their own issues and this, that, and the other, then they become more principle based than kind of black and white rules based. I've seen that,
Yes.
but that's probably
Yep.
the best. That's the best I can do for you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry it's
Thank
like
you
this.
ever so much. I've I've seen you 4 times now at Celebrate Recovery Summits, and you were the one person when this started. I was like, that guy would know what to do. So thank you so
well,
much.
well, unfortunately, sometimes, having a good idea of what to do doesn't work with the outcome that we would want it. God himself has that problem. He knows
Yeah.
what to do, but not everybody wants to do what we need to do. But you can always love him. You can always extend your hand. You can always say, want a relationship with you guys. And I'd be willing to relationship with you guys. And I'd be willing to meet with anybody you want to work it out better. You can do that. So anyway, thanks for your call, Leslie.
Perfect.
God bless you. Continue to do all the stuff you're doing. Celebrate Recovery is a great in your town. So thank you. This is the Dr. Cloud Show. We are talking about all sorts of issues over the days as we go through here. Our hurts and our celebrations and our talents and our gifts and all sorts of different stuff. I want you to call us. Our number is 844-940-2774. As we're sitting here, you can see we don't have a fancy studio with a lot of equipment. I'm just kind of doing this on my own. My team is helping me out in other parts of the country. They're spread out. I want to say thank you to those guys, to Albie and Jessica and Greg, who put all this together. And they did a miraculous job. And I'm just kind of hanging out in my living room taking calls from everywhere. And speaking of which, we are going to talk to Robin from Austin, Texas, who's got a question about setting boundaries. Robin?
Hi.
Hello, how are
Yes.
you?
I'm doing so well. How are you?
Well, I guess we're doing pretty well. I was talking to somebody this morning. I did a conference call with a leadership group, and this has been a terrible, terrible time for so many people. Obviously, especially the ones that have gotten sick, the ones that are caring for those that are sick, the ones that have lost
Mm.
jobs. There's so much misery going on right now. But we were also talking about at the same time, and some people that's not possible for because they're sick, right? But at the same time, the ones of us that are on lockdown and the main consequences that we're feeling are limitations in our choices and being locked up and can't go do all this kind of stuff. It's it's also been such a great opportunity for some good things to happen. And when you say, how am I? How am I, Robin? I got to tell you, you know what? There's been some really good things that have come out of this time. So there's been
Wow.
a richness in our family, because we're stuck here together and we've gotten really, really kind of structured and ordered about, doing stuff together and cooking together and cleaning up together and playing game night together and all of that. And I'm loving having both girls here, and that's been really rich. It's been a deepening time spiritually for me. It's been a reorganizing of a lot of priorities and things that I work on. And so I got to say, I mean, I didn't mean to talk about me, but when you say, how am I? I wonder of this, there can be a lot of good stuff that comes out
Mm.
of this too. So Anyway, long answer. There you go.
Thank you for sharing. That's like text or how quickly they respond, or they just don't respond empathetically as I would expect them to. And it's funny that you mentioned expectations earlier, and how you were supposed to do that with love and kindness. So maybe I need a little sprinkle of that because I can't seem to figure out.
Wait a minute. I got to tell you, I have to tell you, this is just how that sounded. You go, and how you got to do that with love and kindness. And it's hard when you're it's hard when you're bugged, isn't it? Right? It's kind of hard. Come on, Robin. It's
Yeah.
a little hard. Laura, I'll admit to that. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So what are that now? Now I've got a saying. One of my favorite sayings is this: there are some things in life that God and the Beverly Hillbillies would agree. Jethro, you shouldn't do that. No matter where we come from, everybody would agree that's a violation. That's not okay. Now, once we get out of that arena where God and the Beverly Hillbillies agree, then we're probably talking about some areas that have to do with our own makeup and our personalities and kind of what feels offensive to me or hurtful to me versus you, and which arena are we in of expectations? Are they being mean to you and abusive, or is it not responding in ways that you would prefer? Which one are we talking about?
Yeah, you got it. Not responding in the ways that I prefer. Some of them, they just have general, I'll just express, maybe I'm too open with my personal information and I just tell everybody, and I don't necessarily limit. And like, if it's something hard I'm going through, I'll just text it, and then they'll say, "Oh, I'm praying for you," or "Stay in faith." They won't necessarily get in the situation with me, help me find a way out. And then it just kind of turns away.
Yeah. Now, is this kind of across the board, or is it a couple of people that are specifically significant?
Yeah, probably just a couple.
Now, are they people that normally respond to you in ways that meet your needs, or is this kind of how they are?
I want to say it's probably just how they are. Maybe it could just be me accepting them the way that they are.
Well, I mean, certainly. What other choice do we have, right? In any given moment, I mean,
Yeah.
we can we can accept something or not accept something. That's kind of one of the mental status exams that psychologists give to people when they come to the hospital to find out, do we know what reality is? And if we're not accepting reality, then we're not oriented to what day it is. Oh, it's not Tuesday. I want to accept that. So we got to be accepting of that. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't want something different. To accept something doesn't necessarily mean that we're resigning ourselves to that, we're giving up or waving the white flag. Oh, this is the way it's always going to be. I'm not saying that, but it does start with accepting reality and not protesting reality. Now, if what you're telling me is this, I'm going to give you a couple of different paths, and you can go chew on these and go down them later. But there are certain people that have certain relational capacities, and they have certain skills, and they have certain abilities and a level to which they can go. That's who they are in this particular time of life. To be the second group when they're not. See, it may be, and I think everybody, hopefully, you got all sorts of different friends, different kinds of friends. Like, I've got some just wacko friends that I love with all my heart, and they make me laugh. And if I didn't have my dysfunctional friends, what a boring life I would have. But they're not the ones I'm going to call in the dark night of the soul, because they're going to be clueless about how to respond. And some of the people that are most loving and most empathic are not very much fun. And they're not going to be the ones I call for other things. So you might have to kind of right size the screwdriver to the screw.
Okay.
And I would, sometimes if you want to process deep things, you have to go to a group or a place that's what they're able to do. And that's what they can
Mm.
do. And so I would think there's certain friends I want to call for certain things, and there's other certain friends that they're probably not going to respond well to that. Now, having said that, let's not lose hope because I'm going to leave you with one other thought. And that is
All right.
if there's a lot of love with the ones that aren't responding well, what you might want to do is apart from text, say, call them up and say, can I ask you a question? I think we really care about each other. And you've told me that. And sometimes I text you something or whatever, and I don't get very much of a response or get a short response. And I would like more than that. I'd like to, is that possible? Or can you tell me your side of that? And we talk to them about it and we right size our expectations. I, I've got, I've got friends that say, I hate phone calls. Let's, text me. I got friends that say, I hate texts. Call me. Sometimes if we don't talk about it, we don't know what to expect. So I think about those few things. Is that helpful to you? Did I lose you? I think we did. Am I still on the air? There you are. Are you there?
Hello. Yes.
Okay. I'm
Can you
not
hear me?
hearing. Now I can hear you. Wait, did you hear any of that?
The last thing you said, just is that something that was, yeah, everything. I heard everything. I think I heard beep and then.
Okay. For some
Can you
reason,
hear me?
we can't hear you very well, but let's try again. Did you hear what I was saying? Was that helpful?
Yeah. Hi.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
Okay. Try that. I want you to call me back at some point. Tell me how that goes. There's an old saying I would leave you with, and that is, you can't teach a pig to sing. It frustrates the pig, and the music is usually really bad. Now, apply that. I'm kidding, sort of. Anyway, I really appreciate your call because we all struggle with, I think that sometimes we just wish people were different than they are. And sometimes they're not. Sometimes that one's not made to sing and that dog's not made to meow and this, that, and the other. But we can find what we do have with people in different kinds of relationships. And instead of giving up, sometimes we can call them into maybe even a different level in a different place. And sometimes they'll come with us. And I hope that happens for you. Thank you for calling us. Our number here on the Dr. Cloud Show is 844-940-2774, 844-940-2774. And we are going to talk to Alice from Fort Myers, Florida. Alice, are you there?
Yes, I'm right here.
Welcome to the program.
Can you hear me?
I can hear
Okay.
you.
Well, thank you. Okay, you ready for my question?
Okay, I'm getting ready. Is it
Okay,
going to be hard?
here's my question. Yeah, it's going to be a tough one.
I'm bracing myself.
Okay, here's my question.
Okay.
I know. So my question is, why do I freak out when anyone I really care about, that I meet, just like if I was spending an afternoon with you and you were and I cared about you, I liked you, and you were super nice to me, why do I freak out? So I freak out when anybody I care about is nice to me. And I'll just tell you quickly, I basically know the reason. I just don't know how to change my response. And the reason is because everyone I've ever, my mother, sister, former husband, daughter, all those people totally gaslighted me and rejected me and left. So, there's a little background there. So now when anybody's, I get along well with people, I spend time with people, but when anyone I really care about does something special, I totally freak out. I practically have an anxiety attack.
I mean, I'm really just inside. I'm sure they don't know it. And then I avoid the person so I won't have to have that experience again.
Yeah. And what you're really trying to avoid is not the care. You like the care and the niceness, but you want to avoid the anxiety that comes with it, right?
That's right. And I think it's because I expect, probably unconsciously, I expect to be rejected by them too. So
Well,
yeah,
maybe.
I like the caring, but I don't like the response.
Maybe you might be afraid of that. I mean, it would make sense. We kind of fear, things that have happened to us in the past. But here's something that I would suggest to you. Um, you know, a lot of times, if we have been deeply, deeply, deeply wounded, and I want you to think about it this way: if you've got if you've got a little cut or a little scratch, then you kind of like, somebody will bump into that or whatever, and you say, "Can you go about your regular daily life?" And they bump into it, and you go, "Oh, sorry, can you not do that? That hurts." But you kind of stay there, and it's not a big deal, right? But if I have a very deep wound, let's say that let's say I got mugged or something, and I've got a broken arm, or it just, and I'm really, really hurt, then I can't go engage in, you know, a wild dance party where I'm bumping up against everybody at a wedding reception or a mosh pit or something, right? I I
Right,
gotta be
right,
I gotta be careful because I'm easily, easily triggered. So
right,
what I
right.
would, if it's that bad that it's causing you to avoid interactions with people, because Alice, I don't want that for you. I don't want you living
No,
without
I don't want that. I don't
niceness.
want that either. That's why I want I don't want that
Yeah,
either. And that's why I'm trying to get a
yeah.
help here.
So what I would suggest is, if one of my favorite verses in the Bible, so the book of Hebrews, it says, it's talking about, when we're wounded and all this. It says, make level paths for your feet so that the arm or the leg that's broken or hurt might be healed instead of further put out of joint. So look at it this way: if I've got a
But you,
broken ankle, I don't I don't go hiking on a really rocky trail because I can get hurt.
absolutely not.
What
Absolutely
I
not. But it
need,
becomes where
right?
any person's a rocky trail because they're
That's my
threatened.
point. That's my point. That's what I
Okay.
said earlier. If I had a slight cut, I'd go and hang out with any person because they might bump it, and that's fine. But if it's a deep wound, I've got to make some really level paths. And what you might have to do is you might have to start out in this area of being vulnerable and letting somebody know your needs and how you feel, where they can respond to you nicely. You might have to go into an ICU, an intensive care circle, for that. And what I mean is, you might have to start out maybe with just one person, like a very safe counselor, and they put a sign out on their door that says, "This is a safe place." And what you do in there is you start to be vulnerable, and then they're nice to you, and then you start to get really scared. And then you
Oh,
say, "I'm
I
feeling
see.
afraid.
I
I
see.
want to quit. I want to run
I
away."
see.
And they go, "I know." And then we talk about that, we process it. And then you're
I
one
see.
step closer to be able to stand in the chair.
I see. I see. I get it.
And then you
But
join a
but
little
but
group
Dr.
of
Cloud, where
people.
do where ah now that's
Say,
just
and then you
scary
join.
just to even hear you say that.
Well, good. Because see, we're
But
practicing right now and you're still on the call. You didn't hang up and leave.
oh no, no, I never hang up. I freak out afterwards. but
Well,
but how do I find this safe counselor? How do I find this? There are a lot of people out there, but how do you find someone that's good?
the best way, I think, is to go to a known entity of somebody that sits in the chair of referring a lot of people. Okay. I don't normally like to get referrals from people that just kind of heard of this person or this and the other. What I like to do is when you talk to somebody like a pastor or like your doctor or a priest or somebody that they talk to a lot of people that are hurting and they
I see.
send a
Right.
lot of people to help, they tend to get feedback over the years that,
I
Dr.
see. Yes.
Mary over here or Dr. Louie over here, they're really good. I want you to go talk to them. Or they might have a support group in their own church or, communities have these or whatever. My point in all of this is I want you to find a safe place where you can tell them, I have a problem. And the problem is I tend to get really, really scared when people are nice to me. And I want to talk about that. So go to a safe place that's structured, try it there. You're going to get better. And then you can gradually end up at the big dance with a lot of people.
I
Okay.
get it. Yeah. That's
All right.
perfect. That's absolutely
Thank you.
perfect.
Thank you for your call. And I appreciate, you're being vulnerable with me, right? And what you said was when you start doing this, then something gets activated. Well, I want to say to everybody, we're going to get activated in fear in two instances. One is when we're doing something that we've been hurt at doing before and we got to get back on the horse. And the second one is when we're doing something that is new for us that we've never done at that level. So any kind of acquisition of a new skill or a new level of putting ourselves into unknown territory with unproven competencies and abilities where we're going to screw it up and not get it right, that's going to be scary. Or anytime where the last time we did it, we got hurt. Now we have a couple of options. We can not do anything scary, and then our lives get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller because comfort will not get you to a better place in life. There's just not a comfortable highway to higher, deeper, and better. There's just not. Drugs are the most comfortable highway there is. Take a drug and you instantly feel great if it's a street drug or something that's bad for you. But it doesn't lead to higher and better and deeper, more valuable, more fulfilling. What leads to that is discipline. And discipline means doing the hard thing now for the better thing later. So in Alice's instance, or with your spouse, or with a new skill, what that would look like is doing something. I'm sitting here in my house and my daughter just walked by. Hey, Lucy. See, this is the good thing about having a live radio show in lockdown mode. But when you're when you're trying anything new like that, it's going to bring up some kind of anxiety because it's just new. But the only way to get to better places is to step into that, to step into it. Speaking of stepping into it, I want you to call us. This is the Dr. Cloud Show at 844-940-2774. And we are going to hear, let me see, who's calling us? Shannon from Boulder, Colorado. Shannon, are you there?
Hello, Henry.
Hey, Shannon, how are you?
I'm doing all right. It's so good to see you. I'm so glad you're doing this show.
Well, thank you. I'll just say a little something about it. I hadn't said much today, but this is a new thing. I don't know if you've just found it, Shannon, but we just started this last week, and it's fun. I love talking to people live radio. But here's the thing: I would love to keep doing this, but we can only do it if people are listening. And so, if you'd like it, we want you to like it, subscribe. But we also really, 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 because we're running this for a time period, right, to see if this, if people like it or not, and need you to share it with your friends. They can watch it 24/7. They don't have to be on the live hour. You can call in on the live hour, but you can watch it anytime. So share it with your friends. If we build an audience, then we'll stay here. So thanks for that, Shannon, and tell me how I can help you.
First, I will definitely do that. I've been watching it since day one, and I'm getting a lot out of it.
Cool.
Yeah. So let me tell you, my overall question was trying to figure out a balance of respecting boundaries, but also honoring my own sort of levels of discomfort, which I think might need a boundary, and kind of making sure I'm not trying to control somebody or being triggered with what's going. Yeah.
I'm gonna bow down and call you blessed. How many people ever call and say, I got a problem, and part of it may be me. I need to change in some way. You know what? It's so refreshing. And because, most of the times we're just thinking about how somebody else, they need to change. So anyway, good job. All right.
Well, thank you.
Keep going.
Thank you. So the background is I have been divorced for 10 years, just started dating. I have 2 girls that I really wanted to stay wholesome for and keep it as little house on the prairie as I could. But I have since, in the last 6 months, just met someone, and I know you're going to say that this wasn't a great idea.
How old are your girls?
Let's see, I have an 11 and 14-year-old.
Okay. Now, you said, I'm going to say that something wasn't a great idea.
Yeah, and you're going to say that, yeah.
If you think I'm going to say it, and you hadn't talked to me yet, that tells me that you're saying that.
No, I read your book about boundaries in dating and keeping the date that lasts, finding a date that lasts. And you would say that someone should not get into how to find a date worth keeping. Yeah. So you would say, don't go into serial monogamy. and that's what I've done. So in 10 years, I've been maybe on 1 date, and this person is the second date, and we really hit it off.
All right.
And we started.
Hang on. Just so I know you know what you're talking about, and I know what you're talking about. I want to make sure everybody else knows what we're talking about. When she said you're going to say don't go into serial monogamy, here's what I said in the book, that very often what you see people doing in the dating arena is, first of all, they'll have a type, right? And here's what we know about types. Types are by and large constructed out of people's issues. And they pick a certain type because that's not a real person. That's a fantasy that lives in your head, and it's constructed driven by certain dynamics. And we have this type, and then you meet this type, and all of a sudden bells and whistles go off, where opioids are getting released in your brain because this fantasy thing happened, but it has nothing to do with a real person. And so what I've said in the book is called How to Get a Date Worth Keeping. What I've said is, take your type and put it on the shelf and date a lot of different kinds of people, because you're going to learn some things. You're going to learn some things about your type that maybe there's a lot about that you don't like after you get past the wrapping. And B, there may be some other types that are a much richer experience than you would have ever known. C, you're going to learn some things about you. And then I said this, and this is to your point, Shannon, and then I'll turn it back over to you. What I said was that you should get exclusive with somebody that is very, very, very special and are bringing enough to the party where you're fully happy, and that's exactly what you want. And this is somebody that stood out among the crowd, right? But it's easy to stand out in a crowd of one. And if somebody doesn't have any options, then whoever comes along oftentimes is an end to the drought, and you don't know what you don't know. That's what I said. So I like it when people date a lot of different kinds of people, and then all of a sudden they're finding out, whoa, that's the one. Now that's what we're talking about. So having said that, you didn't have a date for 10 years. This guy comes along, and now you are what?
Madly in love. We fell madly in love very quickly. I would say at even the 6-week Mark, I love yous were exchanged. I mean, certainly no longer than 2 months. And then things started to surface. And I would say that they really revolve around my insecurities that if I really wish I was never divorced, not really wanting to.
And the insecurities started to happen when? You say how long?
I would say even like less. I'll just give you a very specific example.
No, I need a time. I need a time first. How long?
Oh, right around I would say a month into it, 6 weeks into it, there was an incident that happened that I've never been able to shake. Can I tell you that incident?
Yeah, but we got to go fast because
so
I'm up against the clock. I'm sorry.
Okay. We met at the mall to do some Christmas shopping, very on the fly. And when we were at the mall, we were, shopping, just window shopping. And I saw him take a picture of these socks. And I was like, what are you doing with those? Why would you take a picture of these unique socks? And he says, oh, I'm sending them to my ex-wife because she really likes Bob Ross. And she would get a kick out of this. And it's like I just heard them Raggedy Ann, and I just like wanted to keel over because for me it was like you're thinking about another woman, let alone your ex-wife, and responding to that thought when we're on a date. And now he would say it really wasn't a date. He didn't come and pick me up, and it wasn't a pre-assigned time. We just met somewhere. So it had been very casual. But we had exchanged I love yous at this point. And for me, I was like, okay, is this a divided man? Because the circumstances surrounding his divorce, and he's already, pardon?
And what are the, I mean, and I'm sorry, we're up against the clock here, but is he still in a relationship with her that's meaningful in any certain way that's threatening to you, or is this in your head?
Well, that's what I think it's mostly in my head, but so she cheated on him with his best friend. And so now, then they were silent for 8 years of a 10-year divorce. And 2 years ago, they resumed communication. And 2 years ago, I guess she moved back to Colorado. And now they just have, some text messages that they exchange. But for me, the text messages were, for at least a time, a little bit more than I would have liked because they were, things like, how was your trip? And did the painting arrive? And very surface level, but nevertheless, I found it threatening because this wasn't an ex-wife that say they ended on good terms and were better friends than spouses. But for me, it was just hard to understand keeping that.
Yeah, I get it. So can you get to a question?
Yes. Yeah. So the question is this. So he's got a couple of relationships, that being one of them. And when I tell him I'm uncomfortable around these situations, he would say, these are my boundaries. I am not willing to he's got another friend, for example, too, that a girl that he talks to several times in a week, if not even a day. And with me, it's the relationships with other women that just surface up as a jealousy thing. But when I talk to him about, suppressing those or minimizing that, it's like, I'm getting why can't you just accept me? These are my boundaries. And so therefore, that's kind of, we have been stuck.
Okay.
So the question is, it's like, where is the control? Is this, are my boundaries really insecurities? Just like what I said in the beginning. And then where do we go from here? Because I really do, we'd go on great otherwise.
Yeah. Do you have any reason to believe that there's more than howdy do with any of these ladies?
No. Nope.
No? Does he ever hide the text from you?
Nope. He will show me the text.
Does he share them with you?
Yes.
Okay. Were you, and I don't mean this derogatorily, but were you the jealous type before you met him?
No. Nope.
You've never had this in any sort of way, any sensitivity to somebody else being preferred over you?
I've never been called a jealous person in prior relationships, never thought of myself as being a jealous person. So that's what I'm also going, where has this come from?
Okay. Because sometimes, if we're feeling something we've never felt before, sometimes it's our gut telling us, there's something intuitive about that we're picking up on something that, it's not coming from us, it's coming from the circumstance. Let me start with this. There is no black and white, um, yes, no, real, wrong, real, right answer to this, with knowing the little that we know right now. And I'm going to tell you why. Because some people are wired where they really, really, really do have lots of friends of the opposite sex when they're, in a relationship. And those friends are very, very important to them. And they're literally, there's a verse in the New Testament that says, to the pure, all things are pure. And that really is what it is. That's all it is. And their spouses and or girlfriends or boyfriends have the same or don't have the same, but it literally is no problem. My wife and I are exactly like that. I mean, I have several, really, really good, close women friends. In fact, I dedicated my first book, Changes That Heal, to two of them. And they're very much a part of our family and friends and all of this. And and so and she has some very good guy friends, have been friends for a long time. One of the things I told my daughter, um, actually both daughters, but my oldest daughter, I remember in high school, I started seeing her, she had so many good guy friends, and then she had a boyfriend, right? But I said, Olivia, I am so grateful that you have guy friends, that's what it is. They're friends, because you need brothers. Everybody needs brothers and sisters in your life. So this can be very, very good and very, very normal. On the other hand, there are some people, and I've got good friends like this, they just can't, I mean, their hair catches on fire. If anything like this exists, it just does. Now, I think what y'all have got to talk about is what this really means to him, what it means to you. And this may be one of these areas where you morph or he morphs. And it may be one that, I just don't want a relationship like that. I don't want a relationship where somebody has a lot of best friends that I'm feeling. You might could do that. But I think it comes from knowing each other. And this is why I said in the book, one of the reasons I said that, you don't want to do anything too quickly. And here's what I would think would be a good path in this scenario is you might want to say to him, okay, you know what? I really like you. And apart from this issue, we're really doing well, I think. Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay. Apart from this issue, we're really doing well. And so I'm gonna, I'm gonna, I'm gonna choose to believe what you're telling me, that there's nothing more than this. And I'm gonna hang in here, and we're just gonna give it time, and I'm gonna find out, if I'm comfortable with this or not, and if there's more to it or not, and if I can trust you. I hope I can. I think I can. And we're gonna give this time. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna find out over time, and you got to give it time, because literally this could go either way. And I
Gotcha.
think he needs to probably wake up a little bit, that maybe he could listen to some of your sensitivities a little bit about, you know, if we're on a date, you really want to text your ex-wife. That one's a little, I would be worried. The one I'm worried about is the ex-wife, that I would talk to him about. You guys really, I don't know if you really dealt with this and processed it. And are you really done? Because I don't know if you're done, because this scares me. And I would talk about it. But then one option is you can continue to give it time and don't do anything rash. How about that?
Okay. That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Okay. But here's what I said in the book, and here's what I believe. Absolutely, there are exceptions that prove the rule. There are people that fall in love instantly and it's the right one, and boom, they're headed for, you know, life, wonderful life together. Okay. But generally speaking, we don't see reality very well early in anything. Our eyes have to adjust to the light, to the dark, to the
Yeah.
spaces. I mean, we don't even experience our own houses or apartments in the same way that when we first moved in them. Okay, so there is this vetting over time. So even if you're not going to bring more people into the mix, I do want two things. I want time and a varied kinds of experiences brought into the mix. So this is why I like to see couples before they get married, they've at least gone through all the seasons together. Because then you're going to get extended family and then you get a bunch of other kind of stuff to where before you tie a knot, you know, I just want you to have time to vet this out. And that's all. Okay. So thank you for your call and
Thank you.
good luck to you. Okay. This is the Dr. Cloud Show. We are up against the clock, and unfortunately, we have, gosh, there's a bunch of people I didn't get to talk to. Want to encourage you. I don't know, Albie, you would have to tell me later if they can hear me or not. If I can, I just want to say, you know, thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Sherry. A bunch of other people that we didn't get to. I want to thank you guys for calling and invite you to call us back. A little bit of a about calling us. The number, if you want to write this down, some of you kind of, I don't, you know, remember to give it early enough in the program sometimes or frequently enough, but the number is 844-940-2774. This is the Dr. Cloud Show, and it's a new show. We just started last week. We're still trying to figure it out. We're doing this on lockdown, and my team's done a great job of getting all this together. But we talk about life. I like to hear from you. We like to have fun. We like to talk about things that sometimes hurt us and find some solutions and resolutions to those. And appreciate your tuning in. Now, the other thing about this is I said we're going to try this for a while. You know, we're going to give it enough time to see if it grabs or not, because it's got to be worth, you know, your time and my time. And I got a whole team that's making this work, and we have to be careful about how we spend our time. But I would like, you know, to see this be a place we could build a community and we could all go on this learning path together and talk about the issues of life. And I would really I'd like to see this work. But to do that, I need your help. I need for you to share it with your friends, because I don't care when people are listening. We just got to know if anybody cares. They can be listening at 3 a.m. because it's there on the web 24/7. It's just the live part's the only time you can call in. But if you can share it with your friends and we build an audience and we start to build a community, then we will continue to do this as long as that is, you know, true. So share it with your pals. We'll get on a growth path together. And speaking of growth paths, if any of you would like to become a subscriber to boundaries.me, that's boundaries.me, that is my program that we put together where I become your coach. Okay. So you subscribe, it'll cost you a little more than a cup of coffee, you know, per month or something. I don't even know what the right number is. It's not much. It's like about a cup of coffee or two. Depends on the kind of coffee you get. But there's over like 70 different courses on there about all the stuff, you know, anxiety and depression and addictions and extended family and relationships and gaslighting and ghosting and dealing with narcissists and dealing with an abusive person, or how to reach your goals, and all of this stuff on there. And we're continually loading new content, and there's communities that are built within that community as well. So go to boundaries.me to become a subscriber. And I would love to see all of you come on there, because it's such a rich experience for the people who are joining the groups and encouraging one another and all of that stuff, as well as learning. And we've heard lots of good reports. So come join us on boundaries.me. And until then, this is Dr. Henry Cloud, the Dr. Cloud Show, and I will see you next time. Thank you for tuning in.